It's time for a Drummer Nation. Hi, Michael Vosbein with Drummer Nation. I'm spending the weekend in my hometown of New Orleans for the Jazz Educator Conference, which is a beautiful hang. And the fact that it's in New Orleans makes it even more special. As you know, if you're a drummer, New Orleans is a city about drums. And the drumming talent here is just amazing. Of course, the conference is bringing many of the local musicians in for the fun, and then we're all heading out into the city to catch great musicians here and the great food and the great hang. So I've hoodwinked quite a few of my buddies here into coming and doing interviews in my hotel room, and we've got some pretty cool stuff for you. I'm really happy with the weekend. Coming to you once again from the Gen Conference in New Orleans, 2017, with the estimable Ed Soph.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing my show, Ed.
My pleasure. I think.
Well, my pleasure, my honor, let's put it that way. I went to University of North Texas in '73, and you were already a legend then. You had done the lab band albums in the late 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And were you guys aware at the time of how great that band was?
Oh, we felt pretty highly of ourselves. As 21-year-old people often do. Mm-hmm. And this leads to a story that I have to tell.
Please.
That we thought we were Cat's Meow, amongst other things. And Joe Williams, the great blues singer, who was with Basie, was in Dallas doing a gig. And as many entertainers did in those days when they were through Dallas or Fort Worth, they'd make a special trip up to the school. Because at that time, North Texas was the only show in town, pretty much, when it came to what we did, big band repertoire. So Joe came up and he brought some charts that he had just recorded with Thad Jones Mel Lewis. And he asked us if we wanted to play the charts. Yeah, bring them on. So Joe said, "You guys want to play a blues?" And we sort of half snickered to ourselves, a blues. Man, come on, we can play things in 7 and in 11, and we can play quarter note equals 400. Man, come on. So yeah, okay, blues. So he passes it out and he says, "You guys ready?" Yeah, we're ready. Count it off. He goes, 1, 2, 3, and total collapse. Total collapse.
So much for the hot shots.
And Mr. Breeden, God rest his soul, Leon Breeden, who had the band then and who was responsible largely, he and Gene Hall, for the success of the program. Mr. Breeden was standing against the wall with his arms like this and his head down, and all you could see were his shoulders going like that. So yeah, we knew we were good. The band was amazing. It really was. And even going back and trying to listen with an objective ear now to some of those recordings made in '65, '66, it still sounds good.
It still sounds good.
It sounds like young kids. It should. You know, it wasn't a road band. It wasn't a bunch of old guys who played together night after night after night. But it was still good. Tempos were always on the edge, as it should be when you're 18, 19 years old, even though it says lay back on the chart. But yeah, it was a good band.
Well, it was a great band. It kind of set the standard for jazz education.
It certainly did. It opened the door for jazz education in public schools.
And not only that, but those players, you included, moved into the professional ranks, so the big band started drawing from them.
Right, exactly.
You went with Woody Herman.
Well, before Woody, My first road gig was with the Glenn Miller Orchestra.
That's right.
Led by Ray McKinley, a great drummer. And I lasted 2 weeks.
You did?
Yeah. And Ray just put his arm
You were
around
too
my
hip.
shoulder and said, Eddie, you need to go back to school and finish your studies with Tommy Gwynn, who was the great drum teacher there then. And he was right. 2 years later, I was with Woody, or I was with Stan. I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. This was in '66. I was with Stan for the summer, pulled into the President Hotel in New York, and walked in. There was Ray. He looked at me. He goes, Eddie? I said, yeah. He came over and said, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm playing with Stan Kenton's band. And he said, see, I told you so.
He was right.
He was right. Yeah, I wasn't ready. You know,
I would have figured it was because you were too hip for the band.
No,
Maybe that's part of not
I
being
was
ready.
stupid. I was stupid. You want to know how stupid I was?
What were you doing?
I would play most of the numbers on Ray's kit, and he had an old Scotch bass drum like Buddy used to use in the old days, skinny little bass drum, and a snare drum. If you looked at it, it was so loose it rattled. And I had to play that.
You're trying to execute.
And when Ray was in front of the band, then they'd do a couple of specialty numbers where he came back on the drums and played the kit, and I'd sit there by his side. Well, I like a damn fool at first, every night, until he got figured out who was doing it. When I sat down, I tightened the snare up. Because, you know, I was concert tuning. I wanted that kind of sound. He came from the Calf era. He wanted that kind of sound. And he'd sit down and he'd say, God damn it, who's been screwing with my snare drum?
Like, who else could it be?
Yeah. So I didn't take the hint. I should have. Yeah. But it was my roots in the repertoire weren't deep enough yet. And I was, 18, 19 years old.
Coming from a great school program.
Coming
was
from
it hard to swallow?
No, it was a matter of coming from going from a utopia to the real world, and dealing with how you relate to guys who live on the road. It was like going to another country.
Well, that was kind of my next question. Anybody in any profession, I think, if you say, how is your professional career compared to what you thought it was in college?
Yeah.
They're going to say it's quite different.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I try to tell my students. You know, it's take advantage of the time now to get your you-know-what together, which I hadn't done. That's why Ray told me to go back to school. Because in this day and age, with as many players as there are, my generation there weren't 10 zillion guys like there are now. And, you know, they're not going to tell you to go back to school. They're just going to say, get out of the business.
Well, I had the same issue. I did the Miller Band like 1,000 other guys. I lasted 6 months or so, and they said you need to go back and practice.
Yeah.
And learn.
Yeah, so we can share
that. They were right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were definitely right.
Right. So thank God that happened. I was destroyed. I mean, the great 1 o'clock drummer having to go back to North Texas.
Tail between his legs.
Oh, man, I called my father in tears. I said, I never want to see my drums again. He said, "You damn fool, do what the man said. Go back to school."
Yeah, well, you did.
Yeah.
And then you did Stan's band for the summer?
Just for 8 weeks, yeah. Yeah.
And then Woody's the band I know you from. With,
yeah,
a
Woody.
great album with La Fiesta on it.
Yeah, the Giant
Steps.
Steps album. Yeah, Woody, again, the way the world worked back then, Cannonball came up to school. Cannonball Adderley, and to hear the band. And when he left, he went to Mexico City to play the Mexico City Jazz Festival, and Woody was on the bill, and Woody said, hey, you know, I need a drummer. And Cannonball said, hey man, I heard this cat in North Texas, you ought to check him out. And he said, and Woody said, I need a tenor player too. He said, well, there's a tenor player there too, Lou Marini. So that's how that door opened.
The process of all these bands turning to the colleges for great
and even up to the real soul survivor, not a ghost band, but the real thing, Maynard. Even up to Maynard's last drummer was a North Texas guy. He came to North Texas for all of his drummers, just about.
Who was that?
Stockton Helbing.
Okay, I know Jim White did it.
Jim White did it. God, so many cats.
So the other thing that went corresponded with that is that these kids brought new energy to the traditional big band.
Exactly.
And I heard in your playing, I guess everybody has, I'm not the first to notice it, that your playing was informed by the playing of the late 60s.
Oh, definitely.
Which was a decidedly more interactive approach than traditional big band drumming.
Yeah, Tony Williams really opened the doors for a lot of us, as did Roy Haynes. As they all did, but Tony, man, he set everybody on it.
So when you get on the band with Woody, was he allowing of that, or did you get any pushback from the band or from him?
Well, yeah. Yeah. Woody was one of the most forward-thinking people musically I've ever met. Completely open-minded, and some of it led to not too good things, but he always gave everybody an opportunity, whether they were a writer or an instrumentalist in the band. So that rhythm section, the Giant Steps rhythm section, with Wayne Darling, bass player, and Andy Laverne on piano, and myself, yeah, we were into, the Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, and
mixing it up.
7 Steps to Heaven and all that stuff, yeah. So we started doing it. We'd do it behind soloists primarily, and then we did it behind an ensemble, and one night the band fell apart. And on the break, the lead trumpet player, great cat, great player, came over to me and he says, "If you guys do that to me again, I'll kill you." And he meant it.
He meant it.
So Woody was in on this. Woody heard about it. And Woody came over and he said, "I know what you guys are doing. Just do it a little more gradually."
A little bit at a time.
Yeah, and we did, and Giant Steps was the result. And that really was a revolutionary approach in a way from what had been going on before.
To me, and a lot of drummers, it brought the small group interactive style of the 60s into the big band era.
Yeah, and Woody liked things on top, like things cracking and popping.
Well, that one sure is.
Oh, yeah.
La Fiesta.
Yeah, it was a great band. It was a great opportunity. He was a great leader.
Now, what made you decide to devote your life to education as well?
The fact that I realized that I had a gift for communicating, that I could talk about what I do in a way a bit more precise than saying, "Yeah, man, it's just a matter of getting the feeling."
Yeah, man.
And I'm not denigrating that at all. I mean, that everybody has their own way of expressing how they learn and how they teach. And as far as I'm concerned, they're all valid because we're all talking about the same thing, right? But I enjoyed doing it. I found it to be just as improvisational as playing, if you included your audience in what you did.
That's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I talk about the same things all the time, but I always, hopefully, find maybe a different angle that might catch somebody's ear who's heard the same thing a million times from other good educators. But not that way.
Well, your clinic yesterday was wonderful, and it gave me some insight as to your teaching, because you've had so many great drummers come through your program and your tutelage, and so many disparate styles, to where I think one of the greatest things you could say about a teacher is none of them sound like each other and none of them sound like you.
Right.
And I realized at the clinic yesterday where you were talking about just letting the music inform what to play and learning the music and put that before all the rules. So imagine in your teaching, you played all these different styles and you'd say, well, that sounded fine, but it wasn't doing this. And this sounded fine, but I wasn't doing that. Let the music determine it, and then each person will bring his own voice to that.
Exactly, yeah. And to get to that point with most young students is you have to eliminate the fear of making mistakes. Fear is the great killer of curiosity, right there. And that, to me, that's one of the most important aspects. Talent's important, but a student has to be curious too. When they hear somebody play something, they need to say, how did he do that, or why did he do that? So it's curiosity, lack of fear, learning to make mistakes musically, which is tried to get that across yesterday.
You did.
But just thinking, letting the music tell you what to play.
I remember a bass player giving me a great thing he said to me once, I don't know what you're afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought,
yeah,
just what you're saying. What the hell am I afraid of?
Yeah, exactly.
What are they going to do, cook me and eat me? I mean, you know.
Yeah, it's a sign that you are more concerned about yourself than you are about making music. And as long as that focus is on you, you're not going to realize your potential. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that you're cutting yourself off from God only knows what in the way of developing as an artist on the instrument.
Now, you've also managed to maintain a professional career along with
Sort of.
teaching down in Denton, Texas.
Yeah.
And grow as an artist that way, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Who have you been playing with?
Well, I play in a trio with a fine pianist who used to be at North Texas, Stefan Carlson. And it's actually Eddie Gomez, the bassist, who played with Bill Evans. It's his trio. We're his Southwest version, and we've also gone overseas with him. That's a very enjoyable gig because Eddie is completely open. I mean, and is an absolute wonderful man to work with all his experience, all the great people he's played with. He's as normal as the day is long.
Marty Brunell's a friend of mine. He says the same thing.
Marty can attest.
He says the same thing about Eddie, though. Just
yeah.
That kind of guy.
So that, and then a trio with a guy that I've known for over 50 years, Dan Hurley, who was piano teacher at school. Dan retired a number of years ago and launched on a very aggressive program of getting his music out, and that is with his quartet, and I'm privileged to play with that, so we do quite a few gigs with that. And recording. Marvin Stam's quartet with Rufus Reed.
He worked with you in North Texas, right?
No, Marvin was there before I was. He was the generation before.
He was on 73, I think, with you? Or
no.
72
no,
or
Marvin
what?
left school in 1962.
It was a concert, though, that he was...
Well, he could have... Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he was a guest artist.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I first learned who Marvin Stam was.
Yeah.
I was a kid in high school listening to North Texas records.
Yeah.
Wow, this drummer's great. And wow, listen to Marvin.
Yeah, Marvin, great player. So those, and then there's some wonderful players in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And
Always has been.
Yeah, it's amazing. And there's gigs here and there. Thank God. There's a couple of joints.
And your, well, congratulations on your announced retirement. Is this the end of your, the last year?
This semester, yeah.
This semester, that's what I meant to say.
I'm out in May. And I shouldn't say out because I wasn't a prisoner.
No.
I immensely enjoyed what I did. It's the best decision other than marrying my wife that I ever made.
Well, there's some wonderful drummers out there
that man.
Passed through your ranks. You want to name some of them, or you want me to? You tell me.
There's some that you're probably not aware of, but who are all working and teaching all over the country, all over the world. Students from Japan. Anyway, in the States, an up-and-coming player, Ross Peterson, who's been working with Kenny Werner and also the New York Voices, very wide swath of experience. Yeah. Ari Honig,
right?
That is pretty well known for his melodic solo work, which he discovered while he was at school. Came in one day and said, "Hey, do you think I could try this?" I said, "You thought of it, do it." So
no fear.
Yeah, Jim White, whom we've heard, wonderful drummer. Keith Carlock, another example of someone with a wide swath of styles. He played in the 1 O'Clock Big Band and turns around, plays with Wayne Krantz and James Taylor and Sting and God only knows who.
Yeah.
Keith is a great player. A fellow named Jim Riley went through the program, and he's now drummer for Rascal Flatts and their musical director. I have a bunch of students in Nashville. Ben Jackson. Oh man, I'm going to piss somebody off.
Well,
Rich Redmond.
Rich Redmond. You get a great sense of satisfaction from that, I imagine.
Yeah, nobody's sending me angry emails yet.
So you're going to continue to teach privately, or?
I really don't know, Michael. I really don't know.
You still have your books out there.
Yeah, if I might write another book if I feel that it's going to do some good. And I'd still like to do clinics. And I still want to play. I don't want people to think that because I'm retiring from a teaching job that I'm going to be out on the lake with my fishing rod, because
maybe get a column or something with one of the magazines.
Who knows? You know, there's also all sorts of possibilities. I hadn't even thought of that. Thanks. Yeah.
Hey, you're on my badge on. I'm here with a media badge.
Yeah.
So
You know,
it's fun to do.
But at any rate, yeah, it's going to lead to other things for sure. Yeah.
Well, thanks for the interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's an honor to talk to you,
Thank
and
you,
I've
man.
always been a big fan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, too.
This is your host, Michael Vosbein, and I want to thank our friends at Atlanta Pro Percussion, Danette Classic Drums, Sabian Cymbals, and Classic Drummer Magazine. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.